Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Before we jack up the car, we're parked on level ground. We're going to set the parking brake because we're jacking up the front of the car. We're going to leave the rear wheels on the ground. Loosen the lug nuts of the vehicle on the ground. We're going to use a breaker bar and a 19mm socket. If you've got a socket like this, it potentially might not fit inside of the lug openings. This particular car has very small lug openings, so I'm just going to use a basic chrome 19mm socket. So that fits great. And I'll use the breaker bar, break these free. Let's go around, get them all loose. Right. We'll roll our jack underneath. I'm going to find the jacking point just behind the oil pan. Make sure you don't jack with an oil pan. And get the jack set up here. Make sure you're doing this on level flat ground. Get this lined up. Bring the car up. Get the wheels off the ground. All right, we'll set our jack stands up right here, right between these two notches in the pinch weld. Put our lock pin back in. Set the jack up the same way on the other side. Put our lock in. Slowly lower the floor jack. Just going to leave the floor jack in place. Just take some of the weight off of it. But the majority of the vehicle's weight is on the jack stands. Just going to use the socket to finish taking off the wheel. I've already loosened the lug nuts. They should come off by hand. Take our wheel off, put it aside. I like to put the wheel underneath the car here. That way if the jack stand gets knocked out, the car will land on the wheel. Pull the hood release. It's just under here, under the dash. We'll lift up on the hood, find the safety release, push it to the passenger side, lift the hood up. Prop rod's here, put it in place. Before you change the strut, just be aware you'll want to have the car aligned afterwards because the upper strut bolt does have a cam to it and the camber adjustment can be adjusted at an alignment shop. So in the meantime, I'm going to use this blue paint marker. You can use a paint marker any color that you have. And I'm just going to give a rough mark where the strut was on the knuckle. That way when I install the new one, I can get it close. I'm going to remove the bolt holding on the ABS wire to the strut. So I'm going to use some rust penetrant on the back side of the bolt. I'm going to use a 12mm socket, ratchet, and a short extension. Break it free. Once it's loose enough, I'll pull it out with my fingers. We'll put that aside, and I'll put the bolt in here just for now so I don't lose it. I'm going to remove the bolt holding on the brake hose. I'm going to spray some rust penetrant. Get the back side of the bolt. Use the 12mm socket, ratchet, short extension. Break it free. Thread it out with my fingers. Pull the hose out just like that. Put it aside. Move it just out of here. I'm going to thread this bolt back in here so I don't lose it. I'm going to loosen the strut bolts. I'm going to spray some rust penetrant on the nut side with the exposed threads. Try to use this ratchet and a 19mm deep socket. This ratchet might not be long enough. So it is turning the bolt. It's not turning off the nut, so I'm going to use a 19mm wrench to counterhold the bolt while I loosen the nut. If you don't have enough leverage with a short ratchet like this, you can switch to your longer breaker bar to get it free. Just be careful you don't hit the fender. With this one, I'm able to use the smaller wrench. Loosen that one up. Do the same for the lower one. Wow. So the lower one is stuck on there pretty good. I'm going to use the breaker. Get this broken free. Now you can switch to the smaller ratchet. If you bend this dust shield, it's not a big deal. You can just bend it back to thin sheet metal. I'm gonna take this bolt all the way out. So that one's going to be the lower one. That's just a normal strut bolt. Let's see if I can take this one off. Not quite loose enough to come off my fingers yet. There's a washer on this upper one. Make sure you get that. I'll push this bolt out. You might have to push in on the knuckle a little bit. You can turn it with the ratchet. Pull it out. I'm going to put the washer and the nut on here so I don't lose them. And you can see the top bolt has a cam to it, and that adjusts the camber as you turn it. It's also called an eccentric bolt. So don't mix these up. This one will go on the top, the regular one goes on the bottom. Loosen the nuts on the top of the strut. There's 3 of them. Spray some rust penetrant on here. Use a 12mm deep socket. I just have an extension so I'm not hitting the fender of the car. I'll get these all loose. Be aware as you loosen them up, the strut's going to start to drop out of the strut tower. It's not attached to the knuckle anymore. The strut is now in the car with only this nut. So what I'm going to do is reach underneath, just with one arm, and I'll hold up onto the strut so it doesn't fall, and I'll loosen this nut. Put this down, take this nut off, lower the strut down, get off the knuckle. We'll guide the strut out. Here's the original strut and spring assembly we pulled from the vehicle with the top hat. This is the brand new one from 1AAuto.com. Spring is already assembled on it, has a brand new top hat. No need to use a spring compressor to take the spring off. This is all set, ready to go in the car. They are marked. This one is for the front right, so front passenger side. The driver's side would be marked FL. There's a little warning label here. You can take this off, but basically it tells you you do not need to loosen the nut that's under here. It's already set leave it alone, but you can take that warning sticker off. And then this little sticker is just telling you that with the new springs, the vehicle may appear to sit a little bit higher and eventually will settle with the vehicle's weight. We'll take that off. The only thing I'm going to switch over, I'll take out these old bolts so I can reuse them. That one's for the brake hose, and there was one in here for the ABS wire. I'll take it out. Comes with new mounting nuts on the top. I'll take them off. This is ready to go up inside the car. There's no direction to this. It can be mounted any way, as long as the bolts line up, as long as the studs line up. Oops. All right. Put our strut up into the car. Be careful of our ABS wire and our brake hose. And I'm going to go up into the strut tower. Get them lined up. I'll get one of these new nuts caught. And I'll get another one caught. They are locking, so I'm just going to thread them on until they stop. I'm going to let that hang. Get our knuckle back into position. Line up with the strut. I'm going to start with the lower one. So the one that doesn't have the eccentric part. Put it in from the back. You might have to move the knuckle and strut around. Maybe move it up or down. Just wiggle it around, push it in place. And I'll just capture the nut so it doesn't fall out. I'll do the same for the top one. Put the washer on. Put the nut on. The replacement nuts are 13 millimeter. So I'm going to use a 13 millimeter deep socket and just tighten these up evenly. Bring this one up a little bit, tighten the next one. And once I feel these get tight, I'll just stop. They do have a locking part of them. Make sure all three of them are tight. Okay. I'm going to snug this top nut up using the closed end of the wrench. I don't want to go super tight because I can turn the whole bolt and make a camber adjustment. I'm going to bring the outer edge up to meet that blue line. So turn it this way. But when you turn this, you can see it pushes the hub out. And as you turn it around, it pulls it in. So I'm just going to pull it in. So as close as it was. I may not have been perfectly exact with that paint line, but we'll make it as parallel as possible. And of course, you can have your alignment checked afterwards. So right about there is good. We'll tighten this down. Tighten this one down. I'm not going to over tighten them because I want to torque them. I'm going to counter hold the bolt, the closed part of my wrench, and then torque the nut to 112 foot-pounds. Once it clicks, you're all set. Do the same for both. I'm going to reinstall the ABS line, take out that bolt, line up the line here. I'll just thread it in as far as it'll go by hand, and use that 12mm socket and ratchet. Thread it in. If it'll get tight, I'll stop. Reinstall the brake hose. Just take it out of the way for a second. Get the bolt out of there. Brake hose back up in place. Line it up. Reinstall this bolt. Get it started by hand, and then tighten it up with the 12mm socket. Just tighten it up. And once I feel it get tight, go a little bit more, and then I'll stop. With this side complete, the opposite side will be the same exact procedure. Reinstall the wheel. Start the lug nuts by hand. The thread one down pretty far, and then get an opposite one caught. Use the socket to thread them in. We'll jack up the car, take it off the jack stands. Locks out. Do the same for the other side. This one out. Lower the vehicle to the ground. I'm going to torque the lug nuts to 89 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. That's a click.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.